This program is brought to you in part by SalCal Real Estate Connections. Welcome. Today's show will be at the Corvette Center in Newington, and believe me, you are in for a treat today, as it's always a pleasure to come here and visit with Ray. And yes, here we are at Corvette Center. Ray, we've been trying to get here for a while, and we finally made it. And boy, I'll tell you, I am so impressed with the cars here. Tell me, how did you get involved with all this?
Well, starting back in 1975, I think I bought my first Corvette. So I was into Corvettes as a hobby. At the time, I was working as a mechanic, actually on Volvos. And a friend of mine had owned this business starting in 1964, and he became a good friend of mine. And he was looking to retire in the late 70s, so I ended up buying the business back in 1978, along with some other people that were involved at that time. And I've owned it ever since. That's almost 40 years now I've been in this business.
Now tell me something. What is the specialty? Is it restoring cars or repairing them? What is your specialty?
Well, we do all of it. Anything that comes in the door, anything from ground-up restorations to a basic oil change, but we also buy and sell cars, parts, everything involved with the Corvettes and even some other vehicles now. Some of the muscle cars that have been so popular lately. A lot of my Corvette customers have had those, and we've been doing a lot of that too.
Now tell me, do you get involved in the new cars?
Sure, yeah. We've had some brand new cars sent to us, right, from even some Chevy dealers for some high-performance modifications. We have a dyno here in-house, so we can do some dyno tuning and modifications, and even some custom paint and body work, if also along with collision work, if that's been needed.
I'll tell you, I like the old cars. I like the coupe down in the other area there. And I'm going to tell you, though, I like the new cars. The only problem is I could get in them, but I can't get out.
Corvettes have always been a tight-fitting vehicle, and the older we get, the less we tend to fit. but they're awesome cars. Once you're in them, they wrap around you like a glove. They feel really good.
Yeah, they are pretty, the new cars. I have to admit that. That new car is really something. Now, tell me, we're in Newington. Is this where you started this business?
No, the business originated actually in Hartford in the very early 60s, was then moved out to Bolton, Connecticut, out the other side of the river, and that's where I got involved in it in 1978. We were out in Bolton. And we moved to this location in Newington here in 1984 to get more centrally located in the state, because a lot of our work comes from all over the country, but a lot of it comes within about a 100-mile radius, and in the central part of the state, it made it easier for people to get to us. So,
in actuality, people could come from anywhere in the country.
Yeah, and out of country. We've had some overseas business done here too. Sure.
My dear, do you actually ship a car out of the country?
Oh yeah, we ship cars all over the world sometimes. Yeah, not a lot of it, but it happens. Yep.
Wow, I'm impressed. Maybe I'll get to Italy at some point. Go over to Sicily and get a Corvette over there.
I don't know. I haven't shipped anything to Italy, but we've had some stuff in Bahrain, Dubai, Sweden. Got a good customer over there. Australia. It gets around.
Wow, isn't that special? Yeah, I have to tell you, this business has to be a really fun thing for you. I mean, it started out as a hobby, right?
Essentially, yeah. My first Corvette I bought, I just always always interested in it. I was a kid, like every kid is, at least that I knew. And so I got in it as a hobby, joined a Corvette club, met more people. Then I met the previous owner of this business, and being in the automotive, trade myself, I ended up very interested in this, and that's how I got involved and kept going.
I have to say, I remember the first time I met you. You have a race car, the yellow Corvette, and how did you get involved in racing? You're involved in vintage racing too.
Yeah, that's a great hobby of mine. I love that. How that all started was, again, back in the early 70s with the Corvette Club. We were autocrossing with gymkhanas and local lots, and I was pretty good at it and had some fun, and over time got a little better and better. And then here in the business around the late 80s, early 90s, we got involved with a professional Corvette race team based out of Massachusetts called Baker Racing. They were racing in World Challenge. They were very, very good at it, and we were one of their sponsors. We did all their body and paint work. We helped them with purchasing, selling some of the vehicles and all of that. And as a sponsor of that team, I was at some of the races with them. Well, years later, I ended up owning that car that won the World Challenge Championship. It's now my car, and that's what I race in vintage now. And I'm been real good with it and real lucky. Been having a good time.
So the hook was set early.
Oh yeah, very early. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I tell you, I love vintage. Vintage racing to me is just the best. I like it better than what goes on professionally.
Yeah, and you know, the racing's great. It's fun. It's a great experience. The people you meet is even better. Made so many great friends in that hobby, and every time I go to the races, you make new friends. It's a pretty neat deal.
Oh yes, absolutely. I agree 100%. Well, Ray, let's go out and see what you do out in the shop here. We've never seen what you actually doing here, but I'm sure your shop is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We got all kinds of different projects and different stages. I can show you some of the stuff going on now.
Very good. Well, we're out in the mechanical part of your shop, and I'll tell you, I'm like a kid in a candy store here. This Corvette split window got my attention. Now, tell me, what do you basically do out in this area here?
Well, this is where we perform all of our mechanical repairs. The body and paint is in another division, so we try to keep those separate. That's kind of a dirtier, climate. Whereas the mechanical stuff is all about engines, suspension, drive lines, whatever's necessary. And that's what we kind of do all in here. Is just we base it all on all the mechanical items that we can do in here.
So all the engine swaps or whatever you got to do is going to happen right here.
Yep, that's all done on this side of the wall. What we got going on here, we got a really nice split window coupe, one of the iconic Corvettes that are made only 1 year with this split window in the back. This car happens to be factory fuel injected, the top motor you could buy back in the day. It's been fully restored. We're doing some shakedown things, getting a few things that weren't working on the car, getting them all sorted out, so the car can be then shipped over to Geneva, where it's going to live the rest of its life.
I'll tell you, this color and oh boy, split window, wow, just brings me back to when I was a kid. I used to drool looking at the brochure for this car.
Yeah, people still drool over these things. They're pretty popular. It's a design that's just timeless. It just keeps going and going, and people keep appreciating it.
So these Corvettes, boy, they're alive and well, huh?
Yeah, they certainly are. We have an awful lot of business going on here, and we have a lot of cars and a lot more coming in to get done.
I see behind us we got this silver car. Tell me about that car.
That's a 1960, again, factory fuel injected car. That belongs to an ex Corvette racer. He bought the car back in 1964, and he had prior to that a 1960 Corvette also that he raced in SCCA back in the early days. Relatively famous guy from the Northeast, and he used to race in Long Island and Lime Rock and all that. So anyhow, he's had this car since about 1964, and this has been his driver. He's getting up there in age. He wants to add power steering to the car, which they never came with, so we're actually putting an electric power steering in it. We're going to put disc brakes on it. He just wants to kind of update the car, make it easier for him to drive. He wants to continue driving the car. He lives in Brooklyn, New York, so he wants to be able to get around while he still can. So we're going to update all these things and make it nice and easy driver for him.
Well, I'll tell you, that was the kind of, I didn't realize that they didn't come with power steering.
No, power steering didn't start in these cars till 1963.
Wow. I'm going to tell you, I'm like a kid in candy store. I don't know what to look at next. You got this silver car here. Then you got this 67, I believe.
Yeah, it's a 67. It's probably the best year they made the Corvettes. That seems to be the general consensus. And that's the top dog. That's a 67, 427, 435 horsepower, tri-power. It's like the iconic best of the best Corvettes. That car lives in Miami, Florida, down near the Keys, actually. And he actually has a home up here in Connecticut also. We brought that car in a few weeks ago. He couldn't get it started, got it running, got it going for him. Fixed a bunch of things on it, straightened out a few things that he wanted done. Getting ready to ship it down to Florida next week.
Let me tell you, that thing is a ground pounder if it's got that motor, right?
Oh, it does. It goes like stink.
Yeah, you better hold on, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, everywhere I look in here, I mean, this car up on a lift too. I mean, is that like a Grand Sport or something?
That's a 2002 Z06. One of our clients that runs the car at the track on track days. Pretty fast car. We're just going through it now. We're changing a piston in the motor, and we got the rear end out to get rebuilt. So we're doing some wintertime maintenance, I guess. A little.
Now, let me ask you a question. These track days, are they getting more and more popular, or is it just me?
No, it's real popular. I'm involved in track days a lot. I instruct, so I'm at a lot of track days. He was one of my students originally, so I get to meet a lot of people again. It's like the vintage racing thing, and the track days are real popular now. A lot of guys and all these new cars that are being made now are easily go on track and have a really good time.
You know, that's a good point. I mean, today, you would think that the performance car ran its course, but let me tell you, it's alive and well with these brand new cars.
It's amazingly strong. It's better than it was. Today is like the heyday, like it was back in the 60s, of the performance cars. They're making 700-800 horsepower cars right off the factory. It's amazing.
Yeah, could you imagine? Just go in the factories, go in the showroom. I want this car. It makes 800 horsepower.
Yeah, well, 1967, you could have bought one of these, and they were crazy back then. But look at the cars now; they're twice as much horsepower.
It's hard to believe. I'm just shocked by it. You know, I see another car in here is kind of interesting. This Trans Am Pontiac, and there's also a beautiful. I know, is it a 62 Corvette over there, a black one?
Yep, the black car is a 62 Corvette. Again, factory fuel injected. They got a lot of fuelies in here today. And that car has just received a full frame-off nut and bolt restoration. Every single thing was done in that car. And we're just getting finished up with that car now.
Somebody got deep pockets.
Yeah, but it's an investment for a lot of people, too. It really is, yep.
Money certainly is not going to go away. You know, these cars hold their value probably better than anything you could do.
Yeah, they've been strong. The classic car market in general is pretty strong. I'm sure everybody just watched the Barrett Jackson that was on, and some phenomenal numbers came through the auction.
Oh yeah, $1 million is like nothing. You know, you're saying to yourself, "Wow." You know?
Yeah, there's no $1 million cars here at the moment, but some of them do get that high. I agree. Yep.
Now tell me, like when you're going to change a body on a car or take it off, will that happen in this room?
Yeah, actually, we use this lift we're standing to. We have these adapters we made that can grab onto the body and lift it off the chassis, so the chassis remains on the ground. The body will then be lifted up in the air. We have jigs we built for these cars, so we can roll a jig under the car, drop the body on the jig, and now the body is transportable. We can move it around to the different parts of the shop, send it to the media blaster if I need to, whatever we have to do. We can work on the body and a jig.
Let me tell you, that's a big deal. And I got to ask you a question. Being in the business you're in, they make some of these bodies or cars that are reproduction bodies. I mean, how good are they?
That's a good question. The Corvette, when we're talking about Corvettes at least, there are some reproduction body panels that are available, and they're in all different qualities, but they do make some very high-quality reproduction body panels that we can install on these cars, and they're just like what the factory used. You got to, unfortunately, have to wait a long time to get them. But that's what we use. It's the best part for the car when we restore a car or repair a car from collision damage. When you get into the steel cars, the Camaros, the Firebirds, and I can show you when we have in the shop, we have a Chevelle in here that has every single body panel new on it. And they're all reproduction panels, and that's a whole body that was reproduced.
It's hard to believe, you know. You could go out and buy a whole body like that. I mean, they even sell whole bodies, but I don't know how good they are, you know. Like a Mustang, they sell a reproduction body for a 67 or 65. I mean, you think they're really worth the money?
You know, we've never used a full body. They are worth the money, that I can say. And in some cases, they're the right application. They're just fine. If you're trying to restore or retain an original vehicle, you know, to make it get the highest award it can get, the reproduction bodies work, but not as good as the real body did. Yeah, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I could imagine. You know, I mean, it helps though when you're racing. You know, because you have mishaps, and sometimes you know you're really caught between a hard place there. You can't figure. You know, you can't go out and buy a brand new another car just to repair the car. You know.
No, you can't. So race cars, they're known to have wrecks. It happens. Nobody wants to have it happen like that, but it does. And your job is to fix a car and get it back on track again as soon as you can.
I just can't get over too, boy. It's not only Corvettes in here. You're into about everything you can imagine, huh?
Well, yeah, and that's based on our customers, what they want. A lot of my Corvette customers do have other high performance cars, muscle cars, things like that, and they started bringing those to me, and then that word spread. almost faster than the Corvette world. Other people saw other cars here and started bringing their cars here. So at any particular time, there might be half the amount of Corvettes, and the other half might be other types of cars that you'll see in here now. There's a couple of Firebirds, there's a Chevelle, a couple of GTOs, all kinds of stuff here.
I have to say that today, you know, the people, the public, that they go after just about any car you could imagine. I mean, it doesn't have to be a certain sports car or anything. It could be anything.
I think it has a lot to do with nostalgia, kind of what their youth getting back, you know, maybe what they saw in high school, what they had in high school, what they wanted to have in high school, and now they're later in life. Maybe the kids are already done through college, and now they want to live that life that they had back then. And then the first thing they want to do is they want to go out and buy a car that they always wanted back then. Oh, yeah. So now you have to get one of these either restored or buy one that's nice, but make it the way you want it.
Hey, let's face it, we all want to act like we're 20 years old again.
That's right. Yes, sir. Yep.
I know the feeling, and trust me. Well, we're going to have to go to another area of your shop, but I have to say, so far I'm pretty impressed with what I see in here. These cars, oh boy, it's like being a kid again all over again, watching the split window coupe. Oh my dear, I used to dream about owning one of these cars.
Yeah, they're pretty neat. Even when I was a kid, I remember when this car came out. I was probably 9, 10 years old at the time, and I remember when it came out, and there was a guy locally here in West Hartford that bought one, and I was all over that car. I just loved it. It was like a spaceship to me back then.
Sure. I mean, today, even with today's styling, I hope they go back to one. I'll tell you.
I don't know if they'll ever get back to this design, but it's really iconic.
Yes, it is. Well, we're going to move over now to the body shop, see what goes on over there, and I'll tell you, I'm getting a better feeling of what you do here, and boy, they keep you busy. I could see that.
Yeah, we just touched the tip of the iceberg. There's all different kinds of projects going on. LS motor swaps, full restorations. We've got another resto mod we're building here, which is an older car with all new drive lines and suspensions and everything in it. That's a whole nother market. It's really great.
I mean, I like to say the hobby is alive and well.
Yes, it is, and luckily for us.
Okay, very good. Let's take a little walk over to another area. Well, Ray, we moved over to the body shop area here, and as usual, there's some pretty nice-looking cars. Tell me about this car behind us.
This one right here is a 1972. It's a factory LT1 with factory air. Kind of rare. They built about 280 of these cars. Belongs to a customer out of Long Island, New York, I believe, and he's in the middle of a frame-off restoration with a car, so he needed somebody that had the knowledge to continue on with the quality of the restoration that he wanted. So he found us, chose us to do the body and paint on it. So he built a jig for it, and he brought us up the body, minus the chassis. The chassis is at his place. He's redoing that. So we brought it here to strip it and paint it, and we've got it now up into its second stage of primer, almost ready to be painted. We did have to change one quarter panel on it, so we've got a brand new quarter, put that on it, and we're just about ready for paint, and then finish it up and get it back down to him.
Tell me, when it's like this without the chassis, I mean, is it flex much or anything?
That depends on how good the jig is built. And he did a pretty good job. He's an engineer, I believe, and he built himself a nice solid jig. We felt confident enough to do the body work on his jig. It didn't flex at all. It was nice and solid.
Now tell me, what color is this car going to be?
It's called Ontario Orange. Corvette named a lot of their colors after racetracks, and there used to be a racetrack called Ontario, and that's the color this was.
If I'm not mistaken, is that like a solid color orange, right?
It has a metallic in it. It's a metallic color and has a black stripe on the hood that outlines the LT1.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's going to be a pretty car. That LT1, I love that motor. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, great motor. It's an iconic motor, and they had them in some Chevelles and all kinds of stuff. But the Corvette LT1 was pretty famous back in the day. It was a high winding, good motor.
So now, when you paint a car like this, you use the paint booth?
Yes, we do. We have a paint booth here. It's called a downdraft booth. What that means is there's an outside air makeup unit that's heated. It's got basically a big furnace in it. It brings in outside air over the top of the car, down past the car, and then underneath the car there's actually a tunnel that runs underneath the booth to an exhaust fan that exited out the roof, and it's all filtered air in and out.
No, is there heat in there too? As far as, do you need heat after you paint to dry it better or anything?
No, you're referring to a baking booth. It's not a baking booth. The air is heated, so it's clean and dry. There's no humidity in it. So no, we let our paints, we have activators and hardeners in the paints now. It's not like the old lacquer days. So it's pretty much hard the next day. We can start wet sanding and buffing pretty soon.
Yeah, because dirt is your biggest enemy, right?
It is, yeah. And we always clean the booth, and the booth is there to keep the dirt out. So that's the intent. But again, we also wet sand and buff all of our paint work, so it's like glass and smooth. We're known for our high quality paint.
I have to tell you, I did some of that work myself, and it was just, it's not easy. It's very time consuming, and to do the job right is very tough.
Yeah, it's just the more hours you put in, the better the quality it comes out. It is a time consuming job, definitely.
Yeah. Now we got another car over here. I see this Chevelle that looks like the body parts have been changed a little bit.
Yeah, that car, every single panel was changed on that car, and that's hard to believe, but firewall, floors, rockers, inners and outers, roof, quarters, fenders, hood, every panel. The 2 doors were used, originals. Every single panel was replaced in that car due to rust and corrosion. And that car is being built into what's known as a resto mod. It's got a very expensive suspension front and rear on it, high-end brakes. It's getting a big cubic inch LS motor in it with a 6-speed transmission behind it. The customer's doing all that kind of stuff. Our responsibility is to get this body perfectly straight, perfectly finished and painted. We're going to cut and fit the bumpers to the vehicle like you see on TV. This guy's doing now. It's going on. It's got high-end build, definitely. Yeah.
That's not a simple thing.
No, it's not. Nope.
Do I dare ask you what color you're going to paint it?
Yeah, that's up to the customer. We haven't even made that decision. That's his decision, not ours. But I'm not sure what color it's going to be yet.
No, tell me something. In my heyday, when you painted a car a real dark color, that was really not easy. It was harder to paint a car a dark color than a light color. Is that still the same way?
Well, yeah, it's not harder to paint it. It's the work that goes into the vehicle prior to paint, and that's where most paint jobs are. It's all the work that goes into it prior to paint. And the darker the color, the flatter and smoother the bodywork has to be. Black, of course, is the most sensitive to that. White is the least.
Yeah. I have some black cars. I'll tell you, boy, it was not easy.
Yeah, black is always tough, but it's either way. It's got to be right. It's got to be straight, and the customer expects high quality from us, and that's what we deliver.
Now, these panels that you're talking about, are they all factory panels or are they reproduction?
Yeah, none of them are factory panels. There are no factory panels anymore. Okay. These are all reproduction parts. The company that built these panels is a company called AMD. I believe they're out of Georgia, and they make reproduction parts. And as far as reproduction parts go, they're okay. There's nothing as good as the original panel was, but it's on the car now. Now it's up to us to make it look perfect.
Yeah, I can't get over what they offer today. I mean, just about any part you want, you can find.
Yeah, there's a demand for it. There's enough cars being restored out there, enough people that are willing to spend the time and money to do it, and you need parts to do it. And so the market's there. They're making the parts.
So all the body work is done in this area here?
Yeah, all the body work. Of course, the paint work's done in the booth. The wet sanding and buffing is done there. Some of the final assembly is done here, or if not, next door on the mechanical side, depending on what needs to be done.
Do you find you have, do you have a need to expand, or do you think you're just about as big as you want to be?
There's never enough room. Never. We could use an expansion, definitely. Yeah, there's more cars here being worked on than I can fit inside the building for sure. So we do have to rotate them around, keep some outside. I've got a building across the street I have a few cars in. That's where our dyno is too. So we keep things inside as much as we can, but there's definitely need for more room, always is.
No, dyno meaning, so you do some high performance work on the motors yourself?
Yeah, a lot of mostly the dyno is for tuning current day vehicles with the computers. A dyno is a tool you really need to have if you're going to be involved in that at all. When you do any modifications to these new cars, these computers are so sensitive, you need to make adjustments within the computer to make everything work well together, and it gains you power. And the only way to really know that and be able to work with that is with a dynamometer that reads how much power you have, reads the torque figures, and you can use that chart to make your changes to the tune.
You get any street races come in here?
No, we don't. That's real popular now, but none that I'm aware of, anyways. Nobody admits to that.
I mean, every time you turn the TV on, they got a car on dyno and they're looking for 1,000 horsepower. And
Yeah, that's what they use theirs for. That's right. Yep.
it's hard to believe though what goes on there, and I can't get over it. And looking around, this yellow GTO. I mean, this car here looks like somebody just drove it out of a showroom.
That's exactly what it is. It's a '69 GTO convertible. A client of ours from New Jersey brought it to us. He had just purchased a car, and it had gone through a restoration already, but it was unfortunately not done very well at all. Matter of fact, it covered up an awful lot of sins that were done to it earlier in its life. And we got the car, and we ended up doing an absolute complete frame-off restoration, every single nut and bolt, and had to change a lot of parts and pieces and panels, and ended up with a brand new '69 GTO. We're just going to be finished with it. It'll be shipped down to Florida next week, actually, to the owner now.
Boy, in Florida with a convertible roof, this guy's going to have some fun, huh?
Yeah, it's a neat car. It's a convertible factory air. It's a all original car. I mean, all the original driveline, everything's in it. It was a one-owner car. It just needed everything done on it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I have to give you a lot of credit, boy. A lot of work goes on here that is not easy work either. When you work on these older cars, it's just not the same as you're working on a regular car.
If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, I guess, huh?
You got that right. Some point, I got to get a vintage racer, and I'll have to come over and get the body done by you.
Yeah, we'll be glad to. We love race cars,
Yeah, I know
They're a lot of fun.
I know you do. Well, we're going to take a little walk around and see what's going on outside. I know you got some parts cars out there, and I tell you, Ray, I want to thank you for being host today with us, and we just love coming to see facilities like this, and tells us that the car hobby is alive and well.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's hard. We're involved in it every day. I've been doing this for so long, it just comes natural to us, but it is kind of neat. It's kind of fun to be involved in this. It is definitely work, and you do have a high degree to keep it to all the time, but it seems to be worth it. We have a good time.
Well, very good. And you got it first here. Corvette Center, and believe me, they do more than Corvettes. I'll tell you that, because I could see some beautiful cars here today. Thank you, Ray.
Thanks for coming. We appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, buddy. Take care. Please return next week to our next episode of Racing Action Today. We want to thank Bill Majak for all the wonderful footage of this show and all the great things he does.